everyone, this is Lillian and today I'm going to show you how to make your own QR code ring. First of all, I'm going to start off with the instruments and materials that you're going to need. Okay, reason why we are making these rings here in Greece is because we have to produce our COVID-19 vaccination certificate, and it's a real pest to have it on your phone, to keep searching for it when you have to produce it, or on a scrappy piece of paper. So I have come up with an idea of putting them onto rings and keychains, and have sold quite a few, and I would like to share this method with everyone else. So first of all, you're going to need your basic ring. Okay, it's an adjustable size. This is a cheap ring, nothing too fancy. Of course, you can get a nice silver or gold ring if you really want to. You can see this one isn't very straight, so just, yep. I've got a silver pendant as well, okay, which I'm going to make a keychain out of. You're going to need a paper cup, which I have cut a little rectangle into. Okay, you will see why that works, because basically the ring is going to be setting in there. We need, of course, our QR codes, which I've printed out on glossy photo paper, high quality print. Okay, these rings are all 1 inch, and that is 1 inch, a square inch. So I've printed out these out as exactly 1 inch as well. Then you need your, of course, your UV resin. Okay, UV resin, and I use that with the UV light, which actually manicurists use with their setting of the gel acrylic nails, I think it is. Anyway, we'll get more to that later. So that's the UV resin that sets with the UV light. Not to be confused with UV safe resin, which, you know, isn't the same thing. I use a nice jewelry glue, or in this case it's actually a varnish, but it also substitutes as a clear glue. And I've got my battery pack for the sun lamp. You need some pieces of paper just to wipe your hands, and if you make a mess, we need a little bit of a gas torch here, and of course some toothpicks, earbuds, a couple of sticks, and basically that's about it. Of course, I've got my latex gloves. All right, and I'm going to get started.
Okay, so we're going to get going now. I'm going to take the ring. I'm going to put a thin coating of the varnish glue. I'm going to spread it around the surface of the ring. You want to try and spread that out evenly. You don't want big puddles of it. You don't want to put too much. You can see I just use a nice little cotton bud. Spread it around. Try not to remove too much with the bud, it can be very absorbent. So I'll just go ahead and put a little bit back down, just to ensure that there's enough, especially in the center, and also the corners the most important. Okay, the corners are going to be the places where the bubbles are going to come up, if you have any air bubbles, and you do not want air bubbles. It is the worst thing that could be happening, and pretty much if you have an air bubble, you're not going to be able to set that UV resin very well, and it might lift up from the surface. So going to spend a bit of time ensuring that we don't have bubbles. I'm going to take the QR code ring and place the actual QR code on it now. You can see it's a perfect fit. You've got to be careful when you cut that QR code. You don't want to cut into the actual pattern. You just want to make sure you get just to the edge. Okay, you could even have the QR code a little bit smaller and have a bit of white on the edge. That also works really well. In fact, it might be even better for the ring. So now I'm just taking the cotton bud to make sure I have pressed out enough of the bubbles. Especially, like I said, want to focus on those corners. Press down gently but firmly. Not gently but firmly. I think you know what I mean. Don't want to dig into it. You just want to press softly and then let it go in quite steady. And then I'm going to take a toothpick and just get into the corner. Be very precise to get the little corners tucked down. to be ready for the UV resin. You want to spend a bit of time. Don't rush this part, guys. This is the most important part, I would think, is getting it nice and flush with the metal. I'll place it in the cup holder. I'm going to put it aside, give it a chance to dry. And whilst I do that, I'm going to glue into the pendant and get the QR code set into the pendant. The pendant, you can either make a keychain out of it, or you could perhaps make a necklace, whatever you prefer. Sometimes the necklace is easier. You can just pull it out. And you're just going to spread that over the same as before. Not too much, not too little. That looks about right. I'm quite happy with that. And we're going to set in the QR code. You'll notice this one is actually blue. You can use blue as well. Blue, black. Those are pretty much the colors I've used. I know that you should stay away from reds and oranges. And if you're going to use a different color, make sure you test it out before you give it to anybody. Okay, you got to scan it with your phone and see if it actually works. Okay, so just pressing it, wiping off the excess. Oh, that looks pretty good. Nice. And it's also going to be ready soon. Just into the corners with a toothpick. Take off any excess glue, and then I can set that aside. Looks great. And now we're going to do the resining. Okay, I'm going to move that out the way, and we're going to get out the UV resin just so you can have a close-up look at what I'm using. Bought it at the local craft store. Now what you want to do is you want to shake the bottle first, get it down to the nozzle so there's no bubbles or a few bubbles, and you want to squeeze a nice button or little puddle in the middle. You can always add more, rather go a bit stingy and then have to add more rather than putting too much on. Okay, because you're going to let this now slide to the corners. Okay, it is the temperature inside today is not very warm. It is winter, and so the resin is quite thick, but I'm not going to heat it with the gun. I try not to do that until it is like spread all over. Otherwise it might start to interfere with the consistency of it. So now we just let it run down naturally to the corners, and then I use a little toothpick just to guide it into the corner to make sure that each corners are covered completely, 100%. Now I'm going to take the gas gun, the little blowtorch, very, very quickly with not a big flame. I'm just going to go over it a couple of times and look to see if any bubbles rise from the edges. You've got to be careful. You don't want to burn the resin. It will go yellow, and also the smoke that comes off is very toxic. So just a few times, and then I've just spotted a little bubble has popped up in the corner. I will go over again with the gas gun, and just to make sure that that's that. But from what I can see, doesn't seem to be a problem of bubbles today. And a quick zap. Yeah, looks good. No bubbles coming up. It's now ready. So this is how I set up for my little manicurist UV lamp. Just place it on top. You want it to be on top, but not directly on top. You want to have a bit of a space, so over it, but not like flush to it. Okay, you have a space there of about 1 inch or 2, and I'm going to leave that on for minimum of 4 minutes. Now moving on to the pendant. Got a bit of a closer view for you guys. I didn't shake the bottle, so I can see some bubbles, but they'll come out. They'll come out, not a problem. Okay, so now we're just going to manually tilt it. Have the toothpick handy just to help it into the corner. as the consistency is very thick today. In the summertime, when the room temperature is a lot warmer, it flows much faster, and you've got to be quite careful of not spilling it over. But here, I just like to guide it in. Okay, you can see I've actually got a silicone mold that I've got upside down that I'm using as a platform for it, because that little thing on the top where you put the chain through is actually lifting it from the surface when I lie it down, so I'm just having it pop off the edge. But I've actually discovered that the black mold is not flush, so I've moved it onto something that is definitely level. You want to make sure it's level. You can see the little eyelet is just popped over the side. Now I'm ready for the gas gun. When you heat it, it's going to get more fluid. Looking for bubbles. It's looking very good. I don't see any bubbles coming up. That means I've done a very good job of gluing it to the metal, and it's got a very good chance of not having any problems after being in the UV lamp. The UV lamp basically within 15 seconds, 10-15 seconds, starts to harden the resin immediately, so there's no turning back. The only way you'll get it off is if you cut it out. So here we go, I'm baking it under the UV light, and I can see it's doing a great job. It's not bubbling up, and I'm going to leave that for a minimum of 4 minutes. Sometimes I like to go 5 or 6 minutes just to be sure, but probably 4 minutes is enough. You can also just pop it on your windowsill, let the sun do its job. Okay, so here we're looking at the black. You can see it, the one on the right is the one I made today, and the one on the left is the one I made previously. And the blue has worked out beautifully. Now that's perfect, and it's ready to be made into a keychain or a pendant. So there you go, guys. Thanks so much for watching.